The tech industry is facing a major upheaval. The reason? A series of sweeping import tariffs. Former President Trump's import tariffs have sent shockwaves through the tech sector. These tariffs, specifically targeting goods from China, are having a ripple effect across the industry, affecting everything from supply chains to pricing strategies. Laptop manufacturers in particular are feeling the heat. The production lines are slowing down, and the cost of raw materials is skyrocketing. Major players like Dell, Lenovo, and HP are grappling with the new reality of increased costs. These companies are now forced to rethink their entire business models. These tariffs are not insignificant. They are reshaping the landscape of international trade. Some Chinese imports are now subject to a staggering 145% tariff. This is a game changer for many businesses. This dramatic increase makes it incredibly difficult for companies to maintain their profit margins. Executives are under immense pressure to find solutions. The situation has created a sense of urgency and uncertainty. Companies are holding emergency meetings to strategize their next moves. Tech companies are scrambling to adapt. Innovation is now more critical than ever as they seek to offset the increased costs. The tariffs are already impacting consumers. Shoppers are noticing higher prices and fewer options on the shelves. Laptop prices are rising and availability is dwindling. This is causing frustration among consumers who rely on these devices for work and leisure. Companies are delaying shipments as they try to navigate the new trade landscape. The uncertainty is causing delays and disruptions. The situation is fluid, and the long-term consequences are still unknown. Analysts are closely watching the market for any signs of stabilization. One thing is certain, the tech industry is in for a bumpy ride. The road ahead is fraught with challenges, but also opportunities for those who can adapt and innovate. The impact of the tariffs is most acutely felt by the biggest names in the laptop market. Companies like Dell, HP, and Lenovo, heavily reliant on Chinese manufacturing, are facing unprecedented challenges. Their supply chains, meticulously built over decades, are under immense strain. These companies are caught in a difficult position. They need to remain competitive on price, but the tariffs are squeezing their margins. Passing the entire cost onto consumers is not a viable option. It would significantly dampen demand in an already competitive market. The tariffs have forced these companies to make difficult decisions. Some are exploring alternative manufacturing locations outside of China. Others are negotiating with suppliers to share the burden of the tariffs. These efforts highlight the difficult choices facing the industry. The impact of the tariffs is not limited to boardrooms and spreadsheets. It's a ripple effect that extends far beyond the confines of corporate offices and financial documents. It's trickling down to consumers in a very real way. Shoppers who once took the availability of their favorite tech gadgets for granted are now facing a new reality. Smaller tech companies like Razer and Framework have been forced to take drastic measures. These companies, which often operate on the cutting edge of innovation, are now grappling with unprecedented challenges. They've canceled US laptop sales and pre-orders, leaving customers disappointed and frustrated. The anticipation of receiving a new device has turned into a waiting game with no clear end in sight. These cancellations are a stark illustration of the tariffs' immediate impact. The shelves that once held the latest tech innovations are now empty, a visual representation of the broader economic strain. For companies operating on thinner margins, absorbing the increased costs is simply not feasible. The financial strain is evident in the red numbers on their balance sheets and the stress on the faces of their executives. It's a lose-lose situation. Cancel sales and disappoint customers, or fulfill orders at a loss and risk financial instability. The decisions being made in these boardrooms are not just about numbers, they are about the survival of the company. The situation is creating a sense of unease among consumers. The once predictable process of purchasing a laptop has become fraught with uncertainty. The once reliable availability of laptops is no longer guaranteed. Customers are left searching in vain, often leaving stores empty-handed and frustrated. Empty shelves and out-of-stock notifications are becoming more common. The sight of barren shelves is a stark reminder of the broader economic issues at play. The tariffs have injected a level of uncertainty into the tech market that hasn't been seen in years. The bustling tech markets are now quieter, and the stock market reflects the volatility and unpredictability of the current situation. Consumers are staying informed, reading news articles and updates, trying to make sense of the changing landscape. The logos of once reliable tech companies now symbolize a market in flux. Inside tech companies, employees are brainstorming and strategizing, trying to navigate these turbulent times. Innovation and adaptability are more crucial than ever. Despite the challenges, there are moments of hope. Some consumers do find what they need, and the joy of finally making a purchase is palpable. These small victories remind us that resilience and perseverance can still lead to success. The ripple effects of the tariffs extend far beyond finished laptops. Prices for essential tech components like memory chips are also on the rise. This increase is due to a combination of factors, including the tariffs themselves and the uncertainty they've created in the market. The situation is particularly difficult for Chinese sellers operating on platforms like Amazon. They are caught between a rock and a hard place. Absorbing the increased costs would decimate their already thin margins. Passing the costs on to consumers risks pricing them out of the market. Faced with these challenges, some Chinese sellers are making the difficult decision to exit the U.S. market altogether. They simply cannot compete in the current environment. This exodus is further reducing competition and contributing to higher prices for consumers. The tariffs have injected a significant level of uncertainty into the tech industry. Companies are struggling to plan for the future when the rules of the game seem to be constantly changing. This uncertainty is leading to delays, cancellations, and a general sense of caution. The on-again, off-again nature of the tariffs only exacerbates the problem. While some tariffs have been temporarily paused, others remain in place. This unpredictable trade environment makes it incredibly difficult for companies to make long-term investment decisions. The uncertainty is particularly problematic for companies with global supply chains. These intricate networks are designed for efficiency and predictability. The tariffs have thrown a wrench into the works, forcing companies to reevaluate their sourcing strategies and logistics. In an attempt to mitigate the impact of the tariffs, some tech companies are exploring cost-sharing measures with their U.S. customers. These agreements involve negotiating a split of the increased costs associated with the tariffs. While these agreements can provide some short-term relief, they are not a sustainable long-term solution. They essentially distribute the pain without addressing the underlying issue, the tariffs themselves. Moreover, these agreements can be complex to negotiate and can lead to friction between companies and their customers. Despite their limitations, cost-sharing agreements highlight the interconnected nature of the global tech industry. Companies are recognizing that they need to work together to navigate the challenges posed by the tariffs. This collaborative approach may be essential for survival in the current environment. The long-term impacts of the tariffs on the tech industry are still unfolding. These tariffs, initially introduced as a measure to protect domestic industries, have had far-reaching consequences that extend beyond immediate financial strain. However, it's clear that the situation is not sustainable. The increased costs and operational disruptions are creating a ripple effect throughout the industry. The tariffs are driving up costs, disrupting supply chains, and creating uncertainty. Companies are finding it increasingly difficult to plan for the future as the unpredictability of trade policies makes long-term strategies risky. These factors will ultimately harm both businesses and consumers. Higher production costs are being passed down to consumers, leading to increased prices for tech products. This not only affects consumer purchasing power but also stifles innovation, as companies allocate more resources to managing costs rather than developing new technologies. To address the situation, a more comprehensive and predictable trade policy is needed. Policymakers must work towards creating an environment that encourages stability and growth. This policy should aim to reduce barriers to trade, not erect new ones. By fostering an open and collaborative international trade environment, we can ensure that the tech industry continues to thrive. It should foster collaboration and innovation, not protectionism and isolationism. Encouraging partnerships and knowledge sharing across borders will drive technological advancements and economic growth. In addition to policy changes, the tech industry itself will need to adapt. Companies must explore new strategies to mitigate the impact of tariffs and other trade barriers. This adaptation may involve diversifying manufacturing locations, investing in automation, and finding ways to become less reliant on Chinese manufacturing. By spreading their operations across multiple countries, companies can reduce the risk associated with any single market. These changes will require significant investment and will likely lead to higher prices for consumers in the short term. However, in the long run, these strategies will build a more resilient and innovative tech industry, capable of withstanding future challenges and continuing to deliver cutting-edge products to the market. The tariffs imposed on Chinese imports are part of a larger trend of rising global trade tensions. These tensions, fueled by protectionist policies and economic nationalism, are creating a climate of uncertainty and instability in the global economy. The tech industry, with its global supply chains and reliance on international collaboration, is particularly vulnerable to these tensions. The tariffs are a stark reminder that the tech industry is not immune to the forces of geopolitics. The situation highlights the need for greater international cooperation and dialogue. Trade wars benefit no one. They lead to higher prices, reduced choice, and slower economic growth. The tech industry, a driver of innovation and progress, should not be held hostage to political disputes.